In the year 33 AD, Jesus was praying in the Gethsemane garden on the night before he was supposed to die. Suddenly, a bright blue light appeared. Assassins from 2022 had time traveled to 33 AD. Their plan was to kill Jesus and stop his resurrection to prevent Christianity from ever starting. They started looking for Jesus and his disciples, who were all sleeping. At that moment, a big crowd carrying swords and clubs came to arrest Jesus. But the assassins got in their way. They began shooting, killing everyone except Jesus. They found Jesus on the ground, injured from the bullets. An assassin said to Jesus that if he was really the Son of God, he could have stopped the bullets. But Jesus replied that his time had come. The assassins shot him. Then they put Jesus in a bag, used a time-traveling device like a watch, and went back to the present. Meanwhile, a group of good scientists saw what had happened. They knew they had to quickly go back in time to undo everything. If they didn't, their reality might change because the past had been altered. They went back to 33 AD to save Jesus. But they were too late. The assassins had already finished killing Jesus and his disciples. Now, they needed to hurry back to the present before time changed because of Jesus' death. One of them made it back to the present, but he was captured right away by the assassins. Then reality started to change. The office building turned into a wasteland. In this timeline, humans have all died out. Creatures from underground come up and eat the last remaining human. The screen then goes dark. After that, the movie goes back to several months before all this happened. We meet one of the bad guys who will end up killing Jesus. His name is Brant, and he used to be in the military. Right now, he's a strong believer in Christ, but that's about to change. One day, he's driving with his wife and kids. Brant was offered a job as the security head for a top-secret company, so they're on their way to a new state. Sadly, they get in a terrible car accident. Brant's wife and kids die, and he watches in terror as they burn in the car. Because of the accident, Brant starts to hate life and God. He's angry at God for not saving his family. He also starts to doubt if God is real. Next, we meet a young scientist named Ram Goldstein. He meets Amy Lee, one of his classmates, for the first time during a physics test. They start to like each other after that. The movie then jumps to 3 months later. We see a group of young scientists, including Ram, Felix, Simon, and Amy. They're all smart graduates working on a project that can move matter. They're working for a big company run by a rich man named Ahmed, who is an Arab billionaire. And Brand, it turns out, is the security head for Ahmed's company. In a lab, the young scientists are working hard on their project. When Ram tests one of his ideas, they accidentally blow up the place. This makes Ahmed come down to see what's going on. But what they don't realize is that they actually moved the chair that Ram was testing his idea on. When they find out, Ahmed moves them up to his best team. He promises them a big bonus if they can make a device that can move matter. Meanwhile, we see a memory from the past where we find out that Ahmed's parents used to be part of an extremist group. Due to some circumstances, they changed their beliefs and became Christians. This change caused their own group to kill them for betraying their faith. Ahmed, who still believes in the group's ideas, blames Jesus and Christianity for his parents' deaths. He wants his scientists to make a time machine. His plan is to go back to 33 AD and kill Jesus to prove he isn't the Messiah and get rid of Christianity. He believes his God is the only real God. He thinks that with time travel, he can go back and fix the world's mistakes by killing Jesus before his crucifixion and resurrection. At the same time, Ram and Amy keep working hard. They're always watched by Ahmed's men. They decide to take a break and sneak into the server room, where there aren't any cameras. The two of them start kissing, but a strange noise interrupts them. When Ram checks one of the servers, he finds out that Ahmed is secretly working with a terrorist group. He also finds out that the group Ahmed is working for wants to start World War III by using the matter-moving technology to move bombs and weapons from one place to another. Even though he knows about this, Ram has to keep working on the project. After some attempts, he finally manages to move matter and accidentally invents the world's first time machine. Ahmed's men see on the cameras that Ram has not only figured out how to move matter, but he also learned how to time travel. Knowing that Ahmed is planning something evil, Ram tries to delete all the files before they fall into the wrong hands. But Ahmed and his men rush into the lab and capture Ram. Ahmed then tells Ram his plan. He's going to send a team, led by Brandt, back to Jerusalem. Their mission is to kill Jesus and his disciples to make sure Christianity never starts. The problem, though, is that Ram won't give Ahmed the password to the computer that holds the secret to time travel. So Ahmed has his guys hurt Ram, put him in a bag, and lock him in a storage building. After a while, the bad guys hurt Ram more and try to make him give them the password to the time machine. Things get worse when Ahmed shows up and has Ram's parents as hostages. Even with this, Ram still won't give up the password, so the bad guys kill his parents. Meanwhile, Amy and the others start to worry because Ram isn't answering his phone. Right then, Ahmed comes up to them and tells them they don't have to work anymore and that they'll still get paid. The only rule is that they can't talk to anyone outside their work. When Amy asks about Ram, Ahmed lies and says he's safe and is working on a big military project. Back at the lab, Ahmed threatens to hurt Amy and all her friends, which makes Ram finally agree to build the time machine. Once it's done, Ahmed makes one of his men test it. As expected, the time machine works and the man gets teleported from one place to another. Using Brandt's anger towards God, Ahmed convinces him and his main man, Sabir, to put together a group of fighters. They're going to go back in time to kill Jesus and his disciples before he can come back to life. Brandt surprisingly agrees with this crazy plan and quickly gets a group of killers ready to use the time machine. Meanwhile, Amy and the others sneak into a room with cameras and finally see Ram, who is tied up in the storage building. They save him and find out about Ahmed's plan. On the other hand, Brandt and his group have successfully gone back to 33 AD and have started looking for Jesus. After killing all of Jesus' followers, Brandt shoots Jesus in the head. His men then put Jesus in a bag and they all go back to the present. In the meantime, Ram and his smart friends see everything that just happened on the cameras. Ram starts to explain that their reality is going to change because of what happened in the past, but it might take a while depending on how far back in time the changes happened. It could be minutes or even hours. Hearing this, the team quickly goes back in time to try and stop Brandt, but they're too late. They arrive just after the killers have killed Jesus and his followers. Now they have to get back to the present before time changes the current timeline because of Jesus' death. Ram and Amy decide to go first, and if they die, Simon and Felix are their last chance to stop Ahmed and his crazy plan. In the following scene, Ram and Amy get to the present an hour earlier, right before Ram's parents are killed. That means there are two sets of the scientists in this timeline, as well as Brandt and his assassins. Sadly, they are soon spotted and chased by Ahmed's men. The two of them hide in a lab where they are eventually trapped. However, Amy manages to warn her second self in the current timeline through the security camera. She uses sign language to explain that Ahmed's men went back in time to kill Jesus, and that they need to save Ram, who is in the storage building. Shortly after this, both of them are killed. Felix and Simon are still in 33 AD. After waiting for the now dead Ram and Amy, the two decide to go back to the present. Felix manages to travel to the present using his time machine, but Simon's machine is broken, and he gets stuck in the past. Unfortunately, when Felix arrives in the present, he finds Ahmed and his men waiting in the time machine. At this point, Ahmed has managed to create a world without Christians by killing Jesus. However, their reality turns into a post-apocalyptic wasteland because he's created a world without forgiveness. Slowly, this version of Felix dies in the wasteland. This means the first versions of the scientists have all died except for Simon. Meanwhile, the second versions of the scientists watch the security footage and rush to save Ram from the storage building. They then go to the lab and go back in time even further, creating time loops within time loops. They travel back to just 10 minutes before Brandt and his men arrive at 33 AD. A gunfight breaks out which kills both Felix and Simon. Only Ram and Amy survive from their team while Brandt and Sabir escape. However, Amy is badly hurt in the fight. As a devout Christian, she wants Ram to go after Brandt and Sabir and stop them from killing Jesus. Ram doesn't want to leave her alone, but she insists. He takes off his clothes and uses them to bandage Amy's wounds. After a while, Ram spots Sabir and chases after him. At the same time, the first version of Simon is still alive in this timeline as he got stuck there because his time machine broke. Surprisingly, he gets to meet Jesus and is amazed to meet the Son of God. Simon tries to convince Jesus not to go through with the resurrection because he's seen the movie, The Passion of the Christ. However, Jesus insists that he's going through with it, explaining that it is the only path he can take. Soon, Jesus is captured by a large mob to be crucified. Later, Ram also meets Jesus and his captors. However, when he tries to start a conversation, a Roman soldier tries to attack him. Luckily, he manages to escape and goes back to Amy, who is dying. To everyone's horror, he realizes that his and Amy's time machines have been disabled by Ahmed's men back in the present. Because of this, they now have no way to get back home. The next morning, Brant and Sabir disguise themselves as locals and search the village for Jesus. But things go wrong when Sabir steals a tomato from a local vendor and eats it without paying. It turns out that this is a serious crime in this 33 AD timeline, so the local guards are called to arrest them. However, Sabir fights back and shoots one of the guards. This causes chaos, but eventually the guards manage to outnumber the two and take them for crucifixion. During the fight, Sabir loses his time machine and it's later picked up by a woman. In the next scene, Jesus is also taken for the crucifixion. He is forced to carry his own cross while being whipped by the guards. Witnessing the crucifixion, Simon implores Jesus to escape, but Jesus is steadfast in fulfilling his mission to save humanity. Simon assists Jesus in carrying the cross. Shortly after, Ram arrives with a dying Amy who wishes to see her God in person. He implores the now crucified Jesus to save his girlfriend if he truly is the God he claims to be. However, Jesus suggests that Amy can only be saved by forgiving Brant. We see that the criminals crucified alongside Jesus are Sabir and Brant, the latter of whom asks for Jesus' forgiveness. Meanwhile, realizing that Jesus isn't going to perform any miracles to save Amy, Ram desperately searches the village for help. He finally finds Simon and explains their predicament. Elsewhere, with Brant and Sabir out of contact, Ahmed decides to time travel, arriving at Jesus' recently sealed tomb. Ahmed believes that Jesus' disciples will soon steal his dead body to fabricate the resurrection. Thus, he plans to ambush them to prevent this and ultimately halt the spread of Christianity. Suddenly, a massive earthquake strikes, causing Ahmed to activate his time-traveling device, which makes both him and Jesus' body disappear from the tomb. A dying Amy misinterprets the earthquake as Jesus' resurrection. When Ram and Simon check the tomb, they find Jesus' body missing and infer that Ahmed is responsible. Just then, two of Jesus' disciples arrive and, seeing the empty tomb, are led to believe by Ram and Simon that Jesus has been resurrected. The disciples mistake them for angels and believe their claim. Everything according to the scripture happens, but not as we would expect. They return to find that Amy has died. While grieving, Ram and Simon are approached by the woman who picked up Sabir's time device earlier. With it, they decide to travel back in time to before Ram's parents were murdered. They journey back, but as Ahmed's men are waiting for them, Simon gets shot. Despite this, they manage to kill all the men. Ram asks Simon to execute the default program to eliminate all time loops except the original one, and to destroy the computer hard drive once it's done. He then leaves to save his parents. After Ram leaves, Ahmed from a previous timeline arrives and kills Simon, but not before Simon destroys the hard drive and activates the default program. Ram saves his parents and goes after Ahmed in this timeline. In Ahmed's office, he encounters Brant and nearly kills him for Amy's death in the previous timeline. He eventually understands that this Brant isn't the one responsible. Ram accepts Jesus' advice, learning the power of forgiveness, and chooses not to seek revenge on this version of Brant. Suddenly, Sabir and other men arrive with Amy as a hostage. He demands the code to activate the time travel device from Ram, or Amy will be killed. Instead of revealing the code, Ram declares his forgiveness of Brant and asks him to be the hero. Fortunately, this version of Brant has not turned villainous, realizes that Ahmed is the enemy, and quickly guns down most of Ahmed's men before being killed by Ahmed himself. Taking advantage of the distraction, Ram stabs Ahmed, killing him. FBI agents arrive and arrest Ahmed's remaining men. As Simon had activated the default program before his death, all the time loops start merging into one, causing different versions of the characters to vanish. Rom from a previous timeline also disappears, while the original version is freed from the warehouse. In the end, all the scientists in this timeline survive. The movie then fast-forwards to 3 months later. The scientists plan to save Brant's family from a fatal car accident. Ram prepares to time travel with a stop sign, hoping it can prevent the tragedy. The plan works, and he saves Brant and his family from their predestined death. The movie ends with Brant contemplating whether they've been helped by divine intervention to cheat death.